CNN legal analyst Shan Wu is with me, also CNN political analyst Karin Emergent. Karin, let me begin with you. You've got a great piece in the Post this morning along with Rachel Bate, and your reporting is that Democrats may be feeling a little pressure to move this thing into the public light, into public hearings a little bit sooner. If that's the case, is the Republican messaging that this is all just totally unfair and secret working?
I think that when you saw that episode yesterday outside the SCIF where the Republicans were going in, there was some consternation. Some Democrats were starting to feel some pressure about that. And it is making people think, at least, about the next stage of this. Because there are so many GOP calls for the public stages, Democrats are really thinking about, well, how do we actually orchestrate this? How do we make it work? There haven't been any final decisions taken about who's going to run the show, about which witnesses they will bring in, but you're starting to hear a lot of the Democrats on these three panels that are running the impeachment probe coalesce around bringing in Ambassador Taylor, bringing back Ambassador Yovanovitch. There is some interest, although not total unanimity, about what, potentially bringing in John Bolton to be one of the staff lawyers do this, or do you let there's 100 members between these three committees. You cannot do that sort of free-for-all because you get basically a few shots to tell the story to the American public, and they realize that that's something that is going to have to be part of this plan.
Shan, is this a disingenuous argument by those who say this is unfair, this is unprecedented, this is secret? I mean, Benghazi hearings, Trey Gowdy himself is the one who said I can get so much more done in these private questioning sessions than essentially in a, in a circus public hearing.
It's completely disingenuous. I mean, Gowdy is the man who kicked out another Republican, Representative Issa, because he wasn't supposed to be in there. Also, I think it's important to remember a deposition, whether it's in Congress or in a civil court, is by definition private. The point is you're taking a private, behind closed doors proceeding to get information. And as you mentioned, this is not Whitewater, it's not even Nixon, where there'd been a long, private special counsel report. Mueller was working on something different.
Right.
This is brand new.
No, that's a great point. They might have an argument if this were after and carrying on from the Mueller report, but this is completely different. This is a unique, separate, independent, investigation about something different. Okay, so Karin, when you look to what the Republicans are going to be able to do, several of the Republicans, I think half of them who stormed into that room could have been in there anyway. And you already have 48 on the committees asking questions, and our reporting is that they're very actively involved in the questioning.
Right. I mean, there is actually all the Republicans on those panels are able to participate to the absolute fullest that they've been able to participate in any investigation. Because the House majority rules work the way that they do, they are not the ones that are issuing the subpoenas, although if they wanted to join in on some of these subpoenas, they could. But they are basically being given equal time. It goes either 45 minutes, Democrats, Republicans, or an hour, and keeps going back and forth like that until everybody's kind of exhausted what they want to ask of the witnesses that are coming in behind closed doors. That's standard practice that has not changed in the structure of how these impeachment depositions and interviews are going forward. So I think Republicans are going to continue to try to make this process argument, try to take a principled stand, but as Joe pointed out earlier, it's not that principled given the fact that the Republicans and president is not really cooperating with facilitating the whole push to have this be everything out in the open and have things be transparent. So I think you'll continue to see this sort of fighting happening. I don't know. I think the big question is whether the GOP continues to stage various sit-ins and walk-ins like this. They certainly occupied the morning. It delayed the testimony of Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Laura Cooper by 5 hours, but they also disbanded it. They didn't come back in the afternoon to try it again. So is it that the logic is the point made, or that maybe it didn't work as well as they expected it would in terms of winning the political point? We can only look to next week and the depositions ahead to see if the tactic will be repeated.
Shan, final question to you on a different but really important topic and a pretty amazing argument I want your take on. In an appeals court argument yesterday over the president's tax records, attorneys for the president and the Manhattan DA's office argued over the scope of the immunity. Like, how broad is presidential immunity? The district attorney's office asked if the president pulled out a handgun and shot someone on Fifth Avenue, would we have to wait for impeachment proceedings to do anything about it? The judge put the question to the president's lawyer, who essentially said, quote, correct, the president cannot be charged while in office. Okay. Is that a correct assessment, and this is going to go likely to the Supreme Court. So will they agree?
Right. Well,
when it
hopefully-
comes to hypothetical murder.
Right. Hopefully the murder charge won't go to the Supreme Court. I thought it was interesting that the president's lawyer tried to dodge the question initially by pushing it forward to say, well, it's not a permanent immunity. Someday he'll leave office. But when Judge Chin pushed him and said, what's your answer to the hypothetical, he had no choice but to take this absolutely silly position that it doesn't matter what the president's conduct is, he can't be charged while in office. If you really want to dive down into it, that would be a state charge. The president's head of the federal executive branch. He's not even in a position there. So
thank you, Shan. Karin, thank you very much, and great reporting this morning.